and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 5 of my gold mask series, and in this video we're going to add the finishing touches on the mask and the rose. If you're following along traditionally, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the materials that I use, including the paints, brushes, and canvas. The app that we're going to be using is Corel Painter 2018 for Windows, and we're going to go ahead and start by working on some of the final details of the mask. And so here I'm adjusting the shape of the mask a little bit by adding a little bit of the background color in. And I'm going to be also working a little bit on the highlight of the bridge of the nose on the mask. And here I'm just adding a really light color. Probably you could take cadmium orange and throw in a lot of white, maybe burnt sienna and throw in a lot of white. And we just want to go ahead and add the highlight on the nose piece of the mask. And I'm using the blender bristle brush and also a little bit of the real bristle filbert brush, and just kind of trying to get a sort of an oil painterly look to this part. And then I'm using just add water number 2 for the smudge brush. And you want to go ahead and just keep trying to smudge out and soften the edges of this highlight on the mask, and that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm also trying to find a little bit better brush, maybe to give a better highlight. So I tried the real bristle impasto soft brush, and I'm using it for the design on the mask, and it gives kind of a nice thick broken look to it because the mask probably has glitter paint on it. And I'm using cadmium yellow light with a lot of white in it, but keeping it a little bit more yellow looking. And you can use your script brush for this part if you're following along traditionally, and just keep a broken line. Don't make it a solid line, just make it kind of a broken line because we're trying to get the glitter paint look. And here I'm just sort of going back over the design of the mask and making it a brighter yellow here and giving it sort of a more of a broken edge look, and thickening the lines just a little bit, and working on the little ornament that's in the middle of the mask here. And then I went ahead and saved it just to make sure that we don't lose any of our work. And then I went back and started working again on the dark brown of the mask because I want it to look a little bit darker on the edges. Plus you can go ahead and refine the design with it. And I also collapsed some of the layers, and when you collapse some of the layers, that helps your program work a little bit better and not get so laggy once you don't have quite as many layers to work with. So here I'm using the just add water number 2 brush to kind of smudge things in. Just make the design sort of blend in a little bit, not be quite so strong with hard edges. We want to kind of blend it in a little bit, and I'm using the opaque acrylic just to darken the mask a little and refine also the detail. Refine all the little designs there. And you can do this with your script brush if you have to go back, if you're following along traditionally, and just use a dark brown color and paint over the yellow. And just go ahead and keep adjusting the design till you get it the way you want it, and remember to keep it kind of a broken look. And here for the fancy lacy look on the edge of the mask, I'm adding a little bit dark back into the yellow here. And of course I smooth it out again because we kind of want to keep the edges soft. We don't want them to be real hard because again it's kind of a glittery glue here, or glitter paint, I guess, that they used on the mask. And we want to get that effect. And then I'm working on the highlight on the nose of the mask again and blending it in. And you just keep doing this till you get the design and the shape how you want it for your mask, and just follow along with your photo reference. And here I'm just adjusting the eye holes of the mask a little bit. You can kind of see the inside of the mask there, so I was drawing that, painting that in. And again, working on the bridge of the nose, just trying to get that look right and the highlight right. And then I'm saving frequently, because if you watched my last segment, my program locked up and crashed on me and I lost some of my work. So save frequently as possible. And then here I'm using the digital airbrush number 2, and I want to darken the edges of the mask and make it look like the light is hitting mostly on the center of the mask here, and that just gives it a really neat effect. And so I'm using kind of a burnt umber color, and if you're following along traditionally, you can use a glazing technique where you just thin your acrylic paint down and take your number 6 flat brush and just kind of gently go over what you've painted, and make sure that the paint is dry first before you do this, but you'll get the same kind of effect. And I'm also doing this to the rose, just trying to give it a shadowed look at the bottom, and darkening the leaves just a little bit, adding a little bit of green to them, a little bit more red to them. And I'm using the airbrush to do that. And if you're following along traditionally, just use your number 6 flat, do the same glazing technique that you've been doing for the edge of the mask, and just kind of throw in some different colors. And then you want to go ahead and work a little bit on the edges of the rose, and that's what I'm doing here, just adding some of the final highlights here. And you can use almost a pure white if you want to for this, because we're trying to add the final highlights just to make that rose pop out. Then I went back and glazed a little bit of purple over the leaves and the bottom of the rose, and a little bit around in the background, just to kind of darken things a little bit and give it that highlight effect that it has on the mask, where the light is shining just right on the middle of it and the rose. Then I went back and blended the petals in a little bit better there on the rose. You can use your blender brush, you can use your small script brush if you want. If you're following along traditionally, just remember to smudge it in with a paper towel. We want the edges to be soft and just give it this oil painterly look. And then I'm adding a little bit more highlight to the veins of the leaves, blending them in a little though, because we don't want them to have hard edges. We want the soft edge look for this. And I'm using the Just Add number 2 water, and then I'm using the number 2 pencil, which you would just use a script brush traditionally, but it makes a nice little detail brush here for the edge of the leaves. And I'm adding kind of a pinkish purplish color right there next to the mask, just to give it some interest. And then I'm sort of cleaning up the edges there where I went off the edge of the mask with the digital airbrush, and using the background color there, just making sure that it stands out, and get rid of that brown that got on the edges of the mask. And here I'm going to go ahead and sign it, but that doesn't mean that I'm through. I usually do a few more things after I sign it. And I decided the signature was too bright, so I kind of darkened it down just so that it would blend in better and not be quite so distractive. And then I put a little bit more of the airbrush color around in the background, and then I decided, well, that's good, and I went ahead and saved it. And then you can go ahead and use the export function to go ahead and export it as a PNG file or JPEG file out of Corel Painter, and that will flatten all the layers though, but that will be your final piece, and you can upload it to your print gallery or print it off, whatever you want to do. So this is the end of my gold mask series. And everybody stay tuned for a new series I'll be having pretty soon. So thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. And I will catch you later.